This episode of the Multiracialverse podcast is brought to you by Eviton Couture, a brand born from a powerful vision and a deep connection to heritage. Founded by Shinnecock brothers Jason Tech King and Wayon Moon Smith, Eviton represents resilience and pride. From handmade tie-dye to wellness-focused athletic wear, each piece is crafted with intention and positivity, smudged with sage for good vibes, and delivered to you with love. Join the Eviton family on their journey of empowerment and inspiration. Hit up Moon on Instagram at Eviton_KS. That is native spelled backwards _KS to view product and place an order. Eviton Couture. Feel the spirit of resilience in every stitch.
I mean, I knew that I was Mexican and Black.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I was raised by both sides, so it was very clear what I was. It wasn't, my mother was the one in the household who was very strong on, you're both.
Yeah.
You're not one, you're both. Specifically, she'd get so mad. You know, those, now you can put two or more races and things like that on paperwork, right? But back then it said choose one, only choose one. My mom was very defiant, and she would say, no, you never choose one. You always put both because you're not one. You don't identify with one. You are both. And so when people would ask me, you know, things like that, like you just said, what are you? What's your nationality? And things like that. I've always just said Mexican and Black. Of course, you get the questions, though, right? Like, well, what do you feel like more? What were you raised around more? And things like that. I don't think I really had that. I don't feel like I had that issue other than when people would want to point it out and try to force me into that. But even then, I was a very strong-willed person, and so I was never afraid to say, like, no, like, I'm both. I'm Mexican and I'm Black. They would even try to say, well, if you're Mexican and you're Black, that must mean that you're also Puerto Rican. What? Like, what?
Yeah,
and they'd say, well, you do know that Puerto Ricans are just Black Mexicans. Listen, kids say the darndest things, but at the same time, like, you know, then they would want to say, oh, so you're Puerto Rican. No, I'm not. I'm Mexican.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Multiracialverse podcast. I'm your host, Antonio Fernandez, and today we have an incredible guest, Korina McElroy. Korina's story is a profound exploration of identity, resilience, and the power of embracing one's heritage. Korina grew up in Washington, navigating the complexities of being both Mexican and Black in a predominantly white society. Her parents' love story began in the small town of Walla Walla, where cultural differences posed significant challenges. Despite these obstacles, Korina's upbringing was rich with diverse cultural influences from her father's Black heritage in Tacoma and her mother's Mexican roots in Walla Walla. In this episode, Korina shares her journey of self-discovery, the impact of her multicultural background, and the struggles she faced in both her personal and professional life. We'll delve into her experiences with cultural assimilation, the importance of representation, and how she has navigated the corporate world as a multiracial individual. Korina opens up about her commitment to raising her children with a strong sense of their mixed heritage and the lessons she's learned through therapy and personal growth. Join us as we explore Korina's inspiring story, filled with moments of joy, adversity, and profound insights into the multiracial experience. It's a conversation that highlights the beauty of diversity and the strength found in embracing all facets of one's identity. Korina, welcome to the Multiracialverse. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing awesome up here, and the sun is shining. In the greater Portland area. You're a little bit north, right?
I am. I'm in Washington.
Okay.
But I'm nearest to like Mount Rainier area, Puyallup area, yeah. Okay. But it's definitely bright outside. I'm loving it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's hard to sit still. I feel like a kid, spring fever at school those days. Thank you so much for making time. I know we've gone back and forth just to try to find time, and I really, really appreciate it, you making time today. So let's jump in. Let's talk about your journey through your identity, and let's start kind of with what I've been calling more now your origin story, where your parents met, and please enlighten us.
Sure. So my parents are from Washington. My father specifically is from the Tacoma area. My mother is from a really small town called Walla Walla. They met when my father was in college and playing football, college football. And so he got recruited to a community college out there. My mother's town is a predominantly Mexican and white only town. So there wasn't a lot of black culture there. And so the story is they met at a party and sparks flew and it went from there. I should say they stayed out there for some time while my dad went to school. And then shortly after meeting, they had me. And we stayed in the area for about 4 years. And then we moved back to the Tacoma area where my father's from.
Oh, right on. So was your dad, I'm sorry, to clarify, your dad was out playing football in the like closer to Walla Walla?
Yeah, in Walla Walla.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were born in Walla Walla.
I was. Yeah.
That's awesome. How did their families feel about the relationship?
Word has it wasn't a good thing.
Okay.
So we're talking about 80s, right? The 80s. And
sure.
At that point in time, mindsets were just different. And so on both sides, there weren't any mixed racing going on at that time. You kind of just stuck to your own. So when my parents did get together, there wasn't much acceptance from what I hear on both sides. Mm-hmm. It was a very hard time. Yeah.
And I think it's something that I thought about this when I was reading over your answers to some of the questions you. Thank you for doing that. About the idea that people think just because two BIPOC people come together, that everything's going to be hunky dory, and that it's interesting. When you dissect those types of relationships too, that those cultures, they have negative feelings towards other cultures, just as white cultures have negative feelings. So. Yeah. And so your parents moved to Tacoma, and you started to go to school in Tacoma? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, we moved there when I was about 4. So I believe I was just heading into preschool.
Okay.
And we moved because my dad had graduated from college and didn't want to work out there or really live out there. He wanted to go back home. So I think the agreement, from what I understand, is that once he finished school, they would move back to where he was from. And just for better opportunities, just because, again, Walla Walla at that time and just Eastern Washington was very like farmland. Yeah. There wasn't really a lot out there. And so my dad wanted to move back to the city where he knew, where he came from and had more opportunities.
And were your parents, just to backtrack a little, were your parents' families established in both of those areas? Like your dad's in Tacoma and your mom's in Walla Walla?
Absolutely. So the way my mother's family even got to Walla Walla or found out about it was because they were migrant workers.
Okay.
And so they moved a lot around the United States. From what I understand, because the agriculture over there it's not just a season where like the season's over, we now move.
Yeah.
It's year round, and they saw it as abundant, so they stayed.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It's interesting. I grew up in Wyoming and in the 80s, and when they talked about migrant workers, it was people would come up for the summer and then they would be gone. It's crazy. But now it's not like that, just because the farming industry's changed and the way people operate their farms and other things, and just, being able to find other economies to get into. So it's interesting how that's changed even too. Oh, yeah. So what was Tacoma like when you were in preschool?
I'm going to be honest. From that point forward, moving, I was so young, right?
Yeah,
I was 4. So I remember little bits and pieces of the move. I remember like our home. I remember like my new room, like the way that they kind of like made it into like a fun thing, right? Oh, look, a new room and things like that. I remember my class. What I do remember the most, though, was how diverse it was.
Yeah.
Because in Tacoma, there's all types of cultures. It's extremely diverse. So I don't remember any feelings of like feeling like the odd one out. It was just life as usual. My parents were really good with that. So
yeah. And were you speaking Spanish at home? Was your mom speaking Spanish to you? Were you raised bilingual?
I was, except The language didn't stick. And here's the reason why.
Sure.
My mother definitely, while out there, because, you know, my family all spoke Spanish. My mother has said that when we moved out to Tacoma, though, because there was a lack, right, of family here, and also because, again, of the times, it wasn't really accepted. It was made fun of. And they were really young. My parents were extremely young when they had me. My mother was only 17, and my father was really young as well. And so my mom would say things like, you know, if I would talk to you, I would kind of get made fun of, or, you know, like, what are you saying? Why are you, you know, what are you saying to her? And things like that. So my mom was just like, I just stopped. And so there were times where, like, I do remember her saying, like, words to me, like, she would say, like, you know, go get, and it was kind of like Spanglish.
Yeah.
But then eventually she just completely stopped talking to me in Spanish.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's very similar, my experience. So your mom and your dad move across the state. You have big family in Walla Walla. I think I just like saying Walla Walla.
It's a fun word.
Your parents, your mom's family's there. What was the household culture like? So Spanish. It sounds like there was a transition to where you kind of assimilated into just speaking English in the household. What was the different cultural aspects that your family carried with them, or your mom carried with you around holidays or saints or religion or other things, and your father's too? Like, were there things that came from his family side that you remember growing up?
You know, that's so interesting, because I don't necessarily feel like I grew up in a household where they both incorporated both cultures. Like, this is primarily Black and this is primarily Mexican.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, I'd never, if they were doing it, I didn't know. There was never much talk in the house of, like, you know, you're doing this because in the Black culture, we X, Y, and Z, or you're doing this in the Mexican culture because X, Y, and Z. So when we moved, it wasn't that we didn't see our family. Like, it's crazy. I feel like I was raised by both sides, even though one was 5 hours away, right? Yeah. I saw my grandparents often. I saw my family often. We were there spring breaks, summer breaks, usually holidays, which is crazy now because no one would ever drive over the past. But we were there during Christmases. We were there during Thanksgivings. But even then, going to my family's homes for holidays and things like that, I don't remember it ever being like, distinctly, we're celebrating this, or this is a tradition for our culture. It was Christmas. It was Thanksgiving. Yeah.
And so you said your in your answers, your maternal grandfather was big on holidays. What did that look like for you?
Oh my gosh. He was the guy that on Christmas, have you ever seen what is the National Lampoon's Christmas? When the lights, I mean, you have the Santa sleigh. I mean, my grandmother's still alive. Rest in peace to my grandfather. I'm so thankful for him. But their house sits on a corner lot, and the yard, the house, everything was just completely decked out. Christmases, he had a decoration for everything. But he was so big on keeping the culture of family, just family. We always get together. We love one another. We stick with one another. So when we were there for Christmases and Thanksgivings, I mean, 4th of July was his all-time favorite. We were there. I mean, he would go and he'd buy out the places. I mean, he'd have stacks and stacks and stacks. It was just, and their house was small. They didn't have a large home, but it was the place that everyone came. So the yard was full of people. I mean, cooking, he loved to cook. And so we gathered with food and festivities. And it was, oh my gosh, the best time ever. They try to keep it like that now. It's just not the same. He's not here, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. But I'm sure his memory lives. Thank you for sharing that. Where did you say your grandparents were migrant farmers? Were they first generation? If so, where did they come from in Mexico? And where was your father's family originally from? Were they from Washington?
Yes. So my grandparents were actually born here in the United States. My grandfather was born in Texas and my grandmother was born in Arkansas. Their parents were the first generation.
Okay.
If I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure exactly where they came from. It said that my grandfather's parents were from Mexico, and it's also said that my grandmother, her mother, was from Mexico, and I believe her father was Spaniard.
Okay.
But I'm not quite sure in which locations they were from in those areas.
Because I was also curious that if your family, when they had these big gatherings, if family from outside of the country showed up too.
No.
Okay.
You see, when they decided to settle in Walla Walla, it's like everyone settled there. I mean, it was my great grandparents, all of their children, like their brothers and their sisters. So the town is full of family.
Wow.
So like it would be my grandfather, not just his immediate family, but then also like his siblings and then their husbands and then their kids. I mean, but they keep it so tight knit that even if someone got divorced, that ex is still able to come and hang out. There was no discluding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like my great grandparents had settled, and then they just like kind of built from there. Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And your father's family is from?
Okay, so my father's family, they are from here.
Oh, okay, they're from Washington area. Awesome. And so you move out to Tacoma. You shelve the English, and it sounds like you enter into school, and schools are primarily white where you're at.
So I would say that the schools that my mother chose for me, not where we lived. We did not live in a predominant area. We lived in a predominant Black area.
Okay.
My mother chose schools based off of, I think, she wasn't from the area, so I think she went based off of reputation and what people told her.
Sure.
Oh, you should send her to these good schools, or these schools are better. It just so happened that those schools were predominantly white.
Sure.
And on the sides of Tacoma where it was predominantly white and definitely way more wealthy. And so my elementary, middle, and high schools were predominantly in those areas. And so back then we were able to optionally enroll where they would send a bus for me and a few other students that were going to the same school, and then they would bus us out to those schools.
And did you hear, like, what was the attitude towards education in your household? Because I know, with a lot of, first, second generation, there's this attachment to the importance of education as being able to kind of move you or, be a projectile to send you out of, the blue collar work or manual labor work.
Right. I think the idea around that was that if I went to more wealthy schools and schools that just had better, I don't know, quote unquote, education.
Yeah.
I think the idea was that I was going to magically become like a doctor or a lawyer. All right. Yeah. I was just going to forget where I lived, although that's where I went home to, and then just kind of become something so great and so special. I don't know. I'll be honest, other than having different cultures, I can't say that that's what happened at all. I feel that my cousins, because in Tacoma, the way that my father's family was set up was that we all lived within the same vicinity of each other. Mm-hmm. So I had an aunt up the road, another aunt up the road. We were all within the same vicinity. Well, all of my cousins, my father has many, many siblings.
Yeah.
There was a big group of us that were in the same grade range around that time, and they stayed in that school district that we lived in. It was myself and maybe one other cousin who were getting bussed out to the other schools. And so, I mean, other than them maybe being more exposed to culture than we were, that's probably the only difference as far as education. I don't think there was any much difference at all. Yeah. Yeah. But we got made fun of a lot, right? Because we went to the white schools.
Yeah. And this was being made fun of by your cousins, right?
Yes. We got crap for it by a few of them, you're not better than us and things like that. And it was all, it sucked back then, but it was all in good fun. There was never really a time that I felt threatened by it or that they were really jealous of us. They were just kind of making fun of us.
And as far as your mom moving away from her family to where your father's family lived, do you think your mom felt pretty accepted by their family?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So there was the other way then too. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Again, you have to remember there wasn't a lot of acceptance of them being together. And I think that the culture with my dad's family was very bullyish, if we're going to be completely honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mom is a 4'11" firecracker today, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, my mom was a very quiet little mouse. She was easily intimidated and of course was never around other cultures. Let's be honest, right?
Sure.
And so I think it was also maybe a culture shock for her. There really aren't at that time, at least where we lived, there weren't really any Mexicans. So my mom had to just kind of like fit in where she could.
Yeah.
And so, no, not only was it not accepting of them being together, it also wasn't accepting that they had a mixed race child. And so I think there was a lot of bully culture for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two things I want to touch on. We'll put a pin in that one. Is at school, at a predominantly white school, how did you feel being a mixed child, being a BIPOC child? And at what point was there either a recognition, internal recognition that, oh, wait a second, like, even though I'm being raised in this white culture, like I am not white, or was there an instance of where someone said something and then it was like automatically obvious that, hey, wait a second, as a child, you sometimes don't think about it, and then all of a sudden somebody says something to you and you're like, oh, wait a second, like they think I'm different,
Yeah, I think it was more the comments around my hair. Back then, I wore my hair way more natural, curly, usually back in a bun. I have very thick hair, and so my mom really didn't know how to do my hair. So she would put it back in a ponytail or in a bun. And I mean, clearly my texture was way different than theirs, right? They would wear their hair very straight and things like that. Comments about my hair. My parents were poor, if we're going to be honest. Although they sent me to very wealthy schools, we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't wear all the name brand, everything that they could wear. And why weren't, things like that. Kids from those sides of town usually walk to school. And they were seeing me getting bused, or sometimes I'd get dropped off, and then there was questions about where I lived, and then when I would tell them without thinking about it, oh, you live on the bad side of town, oh, things like that. It's things like that pointed out that I was not one of them, but I was able to go to school with them.
Yeah.
So
And did you end up bonding, having friends from that school that you I guess, maybe did play dates with or became your girlfriends or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I enjoyed it because in a way, when you're going to a school in a really nice part of town and everybody lives in a nice home, you almost want that, right? Your parents can't have it, but you want that. So yes, I had many friends. I never lacked for friends, but when I was in their homes, I did definitely notice the difference between mine and theirs. The difference between disciplining. The difference between what they ate, right? Like the difference between how they maintain their households, and that it was way different from mine. So yeah, very rarely did they come to my house, and more than likely because the parents probably weren't comfortable with them being where I lived and things like that. But yeah, I feel, and quite honestly, now that you're mentioning this, like, although I may have gotten those questions even from the white children that were there, there were a small pocket of us children of color who were there too. And there would even still be things from them. So like I said, for many years, I wore my hair really curly or I wore it back. And then when I got into middle school, my mother was told by, I think, an aunt or something like, oh, you can straighten her hair. And so they figured out how to straighten it. So I could wear it and manage it a little bit more.
Sure.
When I came to school with my hair like that, it was the kids of color who then started picking on me.
Oh, no.
Because who do you think you are?
Yeah, exactly.
You were one of us. Now you're one of them.
Yeah.
So I remember going through that too. And like, I had to severely stand my ground because I was just like, I'm not here to please you. I'm not here to please you. Like, I just want to wear my hair different. It seemed like in those moments is when I had to like, what's going on? Like, why do they even care? Like what I'm wearing or what my hair looks like. And getting it from both sides.
Yeah. How did you identify? And I know that we use way different terms now, but from the time that you can actually remember maybe somebody asking you like, oh, what are you? How did you identify organically or naturally, or did your parents did they coach you on? Oh, here is what you say. Like you're actually
Right.
a combination. Yeah.
I mean, I knew that I was Mexican and Black.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I was raised by both sides, so it was very clear what I was. It wasn't, my mother was the one in the household who was very strong on, you're both.
Yeah.
You're not one,
Yeah.
you're both. Specifically, she'd get so mad. You know, those, now you can put 2 or more races and things like that on paperwork, right? But back then it said choose one, only choose one. My mom was very defiant, and she would say, no, you never choose one. You always put both, because you're not one. You don't identify with one. You are both. And so when people would ask me, you know, things like that, like you just said, what are you? What's your nationality? And things like that. I've always just said Mexican and Black.
Yeah,
Of course, you get the questions, though, right? Like, well, what do you feel like more? What were you raised around more? And things like that. I don't think I really had that. I don't feel like I had that issue, other than when people would want to point it out and try to force me into that. But even then, I was a very strong-willed person, and so I was never afraid to say, like, no, like, I'm both. I'm Mexican and I'm Black. They would even try to say, well, if you're Mexican, you're Black, that must mean that you're also Puerto Rican. What? Like, what?
Yeah,
and they say, well, you do know that Puerto Ricans are just Black Mexicans.
Oh,
I'm like, listen, kids say the darndest things, but at the same time, like, you know, then they would want to say, oh, so you're Puerto Rican. No, I'm not. I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I ever really had that issue of like self-identity or like, do I feel like one? Do I feel like the other? No. But, you know, I wasn't really with both at the same time. I was either with my Mexican side or I was with my Black side. I still don't feel like I code switched, though. Like, I don't feel like when I was with my Mexican side, I put on the accent and try to act like them. And I also don't feel like when I was with my Black side that I all of a sudden had to say more slang or just whatever people would imagine.
Did, maybe not code switch, but like, oh, I dressed more Black urban hip hop or, you know, Hispanic, Latina, you know what I'm saying? Were there any times that you went through, people would call phases, I guess, even though, like...
You know... That's interesting. It's so funny because I was predominantly raised in Tacoma.
Yeah.
I feel like I just wore whatever the fashion was then. Not sure if it was considered Black or anything like that, but I do know that when I did go to Walla Walla, again, because it's such a small town, these are people that are not used to seeing new Jordans you know what I'm saying? Owning 3 or more pair of jeans and, you know, the name brand this and like cool things, that by the time that I want to say when I started like really dressing myself in like middle school and high school and I wanted to wear those things and stuff like that, I was seen really cool, right? I was like the cool cousin who had like all the cool stuff. Mind you, I'm still poor, okay? But when I went to Walla Walla, I was seen as like the city girl with all the cool things. And I feel that when I was there, maybe they saw me as a little bit more urban.
Okay.
Because I was nothing like them at all. Nothing like my cousins over there.
Yeah, I think, and then now I remember what I was going to ask you is that it's great that your mom, she was very, you know, staunch in the way of like saying, hey, you're both of these mixes. How is that, we're going to jump a little bit ahead. How's that impacted the way you have parented your children?
Ooh,
yeah,
really,
and
really
have
good.
they asked questions? Because you say you do have children. You're in a, I guess, mixed race relation, you know, marriage or a relationship, and have your kids asked those same questions that maybe you didn't ask, or that just you know?
That's a really good question. I feel like I do raise my children, although my husband is African American and I am, you know, Black and Mexican, easily. My kids could just grow up just thinking that they're Black, right? Yeah. And my mother's just mixed. Like as if that has nothing to do with them. But I raised my kids to tell people that they're Mexican and Black. Yeah. They are also both raised by both sides of their family, meaning that they are around their Mexican side and they're also around their Black side. And so my oldest, who is 17, can vocally tell people I'm Mexican and Black. Yeah. He says that there haven't been many questions from him to me. But he tells me that people always try to tell him what he is. He's a little bit more fair-skinned. He's lighter than me. Yeah. His hair is really curly, really dark. And so people say, oh, I thought maybe, you were maybe white and black. Or maybe I thought maybe you were Asian and black. And they want to like depict him in some ways. Well, it's because your eyes. It's because of this. It's because of that.
Yeah.
And he's like, what did I just tell you? I'm Mexican and black. And so I think that annoys him a little bit.
Sure,
so he'll come home and he'll tell me things like, and it's just interesting how people like they have to have the answer that they need to make them feel about who you are.
Yes.
And so I've gotten that, but my youngest, he's only 6, and I don't feel like he's had that yet, or he hasn't had many questions at all, really. But in the same ways, I'm raising him the same way.
Yeah, yeah, and you probably see it even too with your younger, and like with my girls, they're very fair skinned, but when you're around a bunch of different diverse groups and you don't really talk about that external piece, like the kids don't pick up on it either. They're just like, oh, those are our friends. Like that's our neighbor. That's, and it's amazing. It's like life. It is a learned behavior to want to compartmentalize based on looks or skin color or other things. So
yeah, the curiosity and things like that. Yeah. If you're just kind of raised without pointing out those things all the time to make them, like you said, the curiosity. Yeah. It's not really there until they're faced with it.
And so you mentioned earlier that you were raised going through mostly predominantly white schools. Did you go to college and to university? And if you did, was it a different experience as far as diversity there? And
absolutely.
Yeah. And there, did you start to think about identity differently, whether it was you joined, an affinity group of some sort or a class that you had this aha moment in?
That's really good because yes, I did do some college. I didn't graduate, but I did. When I moved out of the household, I had applied to some HBCUs. So I attended a historically Black university in North Carolina. Yeah. And everyone kept telling me before I went, like, I know you've been raised around Black people, but you haven't been raised around the South, right? And I'm like, how bad can it be? Yeah, I've always been a very extroverted person. So I'm just like, I'm going in with an open mind. It was a great experience. I mean, by far the best experience I've ever had. Yeah. But yes, there were tons of, again, what are you? Right. Yeah. Because obviously I'm mixed. And then when I would tell them, I mean, that was the first time I got a question that said, and your grandparents accepted them together? Like your grandparents accepted them to have you? And I'm thinking, like, what? Because at this point, I had been raised almost 18 years, right? Yeah. Being accepted by both and not really knowing the full story. Yeah. And so there was a lot of like, whoa, like they must have been upset or they must have been mad. And it's not that I was the only mixed race person there, but I was maybe one of a handful, right? Mm-hmm. And all of us who were from the North. Oh, wow. So that's what they would call us. You're from up north.
Oh my gosh, how interesting.
And so, yeah, it did. I think it wasn't necessarily an identity thing. I think I was just more so like, that's where I was like, wait, like, well, why wouldn't my grandparents be okay with that? I didn't know the full story of that. Yeah. And so like, why would they be upset? Like my mom's Mexican. Like she's not white. Like I knew that whole like not intermingling with white and this and that, but I was like, my mom's a person of color. Yeah, why would my dad's side care? Or why would her side care if she was with my dad and things like that? They started the questions and I was like, hold on. And so that's where I started getting the full story. I started asking my mother, like, were they mad that you were with my dad or, vice versa? And she was like, yeah, it was a really hard time. Also, not only that, but on both sides of my family, my father's and my mother's side, I was the very first mixed kid. Okay. I was just ruffling feathers. I mean, my whole everything was an uproar, right? Because what the heck? Yeah. I was the very first mixed race kid. Now, that was in the beginning when I started school. Again, I think because I was very comfortable in my skin and who I was, that eventually that had to stop. Yeah. And it did. And it did. Mm-hmm.
Did it change the way you looked at the Black side of your identity, like being in the South? Did it make you question your Blackness?
I don't think it made me question my blackness, but being there in North Carolina, I also, it's so far away. I mean, I was on the total opposite end. My mother couldn't afford to, at this point, my parents were divorced. So my mother couldn't just fly me home for the holidays, right?
Yeah.
And for the holidays in those schools and probably all colleges, you had to leave. You had to leave so I would go and with friends. I went to and I experienced Washington, D.C. and Maryland, Virginia. I mean, all of the surrounding states. I had family in Georgia. My dad had a niece who decided to go to school in Virginia, and she ended up living in Georgia. And so I had two cousins who had went to college in Georgia, had already been graduated and just established home there. So I went to Georgia and all those things. I don't think it really made me question my blackness, but what I did get to see over there was what Black excellence looked like. I feel like over here, it's not that we're not doing well, right? But if I have to be completely honest with you, there's still that stigma around like the angry Black person or just this and that. And like, it's very rare that you see very predominant Black people. Now, I feel like in today's day and age, they are there, but back then it was, you just saw who your uncle and your aunt, like you just weren't really, again, and then the schools that I'm going to, right? So none of my teachers were Black or of any other race. So being there to see Black professors, well-established, astute families. I mean, everybody in that school was like how do you say, all of their family either went to that school and graduated. Like they were like, yeah, like my grandmother went here, my grandfather went here, my mom, my dad. I didn't come from a family full of college educated people, right? So I didn't see a lot of color when it came to graduation of colleges and things like that. And so to be there and to see that, I mean, it was fascinating. Yeah. But absolutely fascinating. And
so as you're transitioning into adulthood, it sounds like your mom did a pretty good job, and your dad, did a pretty good job of establishing self-esteem around your identity, and how to be able to, live as a multiracial individual and not have too much confusion about it. But you do mention. You did mention in your answers going to therapy. What were some of the things that might have come out that you were like, oh shit, like this actually did affect me more deeply than I thought it had. As you're growing older, times are changing. Yeah. Right. Tell us about that.
I think that through therapy, first of all, I went to therapy to heal myself from my parents. Okay.
Don't we all?
Right? So thank you, Mom and Dad. But I think after going through therapy for such a long time, it was the idea of like, that wasn't normal, right? Yeah. Like I would bring up things, whether it came down to how they disciplined and it was just like, it's not normal. Having to rewire your brain, man, after being raised in families in a culture that says this is just what it is. And, it was really difficult. I think that was like the biggest eye opener. My parents were already just unhappily married for many, many years. Sure. And I know that they stuck it out because of the kids. But they grew up in dysfunction, right? Mm-hmm. And then just kind of brought it into their marriage and then brought it into their children. And I think it was the idea of like, this is just what it is. Yeah. Oh, you're unhappy or we're abusive to each other. No matter what, we love each other and we stick it out. Like you're supposed to always like be that ride or die, like no matter what. And like being in therapy and they're like, no. Yeah. There's something called boundaries and I'm going to teach you that right now. And I don't know if it was necessarily a cultural thing though.
No, yeah.
But it was things like that. I also had noticed I first started therapy when I was in my mid-20s, and mainly because I was a very young mother. My oldest, I had him at 20. Mm-hmm. And I started noticing some things in myself. I was kind of becoming that like angry, because I said so type of mom, and I just didn't want that for him.
Was there any stigma around going into therapy being BIPOC or being a person of color?
Are you kidding me? Yeah. That's such a weak thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, like you're weak-minded. Like why would you go to therapy? And then the idea of like you're going there and you're talking to a person that's white that's telling you what to do. Like what a sellout, right?
Yeah.
Like what? And I think that the idea was just like I was weak-minded. That's a weak thing to do. No one goes to therapy. We work it out. We either talk amongst each other or we hold grudges until we get over it. Like we just don't do that. My father was someone who people would tell like, hey, you really need to like go to therapy, but he thought he was the therapist. Men of color, I feel, have a really strong issue, right? Because again, it's a weak thing to do to go seek help. So he would never, and I know the men in my family would never, but yeah, when I first started, I kept it a secret for a really long time because of that. I knew I was going to get some crap for it.
Did you consider, you mentioned talking to a white therapist. Did you at any time in your journey through therapy, the light came on and you're like, oh, wait a second, like I want to find somebody who has a similar experience to mine. And then you did find that person and there was a different experience in your therapy.
No.
Okay.
I never struggled with that because my thing is like, is this your profession and you're educated in it? And can you help me with my issues? Yes. Okay, then let's do this thing. There have been times though, like I said, I started in my mid-20s. I didn't go all the way through. I probably did that for a few years. And then I went back after I had my second son because I was going through a lot of postpartum stuff.
Sure.
But I'm so happy that I did because although it was only for postpartum at the time, there was just a lot of things I just hadn't healed from. And so, no, but I did experience having therapists that just didn't fully understand my background.
Yeah.
So when I was talking about it, it just seemed very confusing to them. And so I never had an issue finding a new therapist because it's like, well, if you can't help me, then I'm not going to sit here and talk to you while you're like frowning your eyebrows at me.
Yeah.
And you're just confused the entire time, right? So no, I never did that, but I had some amazing therapists over the years that really, really helped me out. And I'm so thankful for them because my kids get to have a different upbringing and my husband gets to have a really healthy wife.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
and
awesome.
You know, but then it trickles down, right? Like my mom gets to have a better daughter where we have a better relationship. This also helped my relationships with my siblings. Like it just all the way around. So no, I never thought about like, maybe I should talk to a person of color because maybe they would understand me a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And I like how you framed it with the aspect of an objective professionalism potentially that these therapists supposedly have from their studies to be able to help with, you know, these common things that come up in our psychology. So so it sounds like, you know, you were pretty grounded in your identity as a multiracial individual. You do mention a little bit about potentially struggling as a multiracial person in a probably predominantly white corporate world. Yes. What was that like for you?
You know, I think sometimes when you come from families of color, you're taught this assertiveness that can come off as aggressive.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone around you, especially people in your family, they know you're not being aggressive. Like, you're just talking.
Yeah.
But when you talk to someone who's not from your culture and you start talking that way, it's like, what did I do to you? Did I do something to you? And I'm just thinking, no, what did I say? You know? I think I had, in that instance, though, I do feel like, and I didn't know the term code switching at that time, but I had to learn tone. And I definitely had to learn just language, like how to properly fit in to those spaces, because you see sometimes when people kind of stick to that, how they can kind of be shunned in a way.
Sure.
I've seen that over the years. I feel like it's gotten better for sure. Yeah. But I do feel like in my younger years, trying to get into the corporate world, I had to act the part.
This is an off the cuff question, but do you feel it's unfair to BIPOC people in a way that's...
It is extremely unfair because I have to act.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I say something that's not, that you don't understand, all of a sudden I'm speaking slang. No, I'm not. That's not what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I do something, or if I wear my hair a certain way, or if I do this or do that, and it's like it's constantly judged, I I'm not doing that. So why do you have to do that to me?
Yeah.
And it's extremely unfair.
Do you think with our societies leaning into this kind of new agey idea of being authentic, being your authentic self, do you feel that you're able to do that more in the corporate world now, or do you think that companies talk about it, but there's a limit to what authenticity is, and maybe it's still tied to what is, the white, and I only say supremacist way as far as being an overarching ideology. There's only that way of being authentic that's the right way.
Ooh. I do feel that there's a mixture. I think it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's 50%. We're just saying this because we have to.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, but then people are like, well, I'm going to take you on that and I'm going to try it out. See how far I can take this, right? And then there has to be a sense of like, okay, we have to accept it. So I feel like it's 50-50. Before, I feel like it was just said, but not really accepted.
Yeah.
I see a lot more acceptance now.
Yeah.
I do. And I love that. And I think the reason being is because there's a space for us, right? Like there's business resource groups for your culture and things like that. But it's also a welcoming culture for allies, for people who just want to know more. And so I think because of that, we're finding more acceptance.
And how do you, how has your experience helped you to be a better ally to groups that differ from you? And then also, this is maybe a two-part question, is how has it made you, do you feel like it's made you see the world in a more accepting way, being multiracial?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to think about it. Growing up, being told that you have to choose one or the other. You have to constantly explain who you are. I think naturally you're kind of raised by default to just accept people for who they are, because that's what you want them to do. It's that whole like treat people how you want them to treat you, right? So I do. I feel that becoming an ally of others was easy.
Yeah.
It was an easy transition. It's not this, well, you don't know what I've been through, right? Like my culture had it harder than yours, and I can bring up the facts for you, right? No, it's like, welcome to the club, like, let's all stand together.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you feel, how do you feel? This is just another thing I was thinking of, and I think you'd be a great person to answer this is, what do you think about the idea of, say, for instance, after George Floyd's murder, there was a big period of enlightenment for people to kind of stare racism in the face, like very, very close to them. And this whole group of individuals who were not Black or not people of color kind of coming to terms with the idea of like, oh yeah, like our society has all these racist undertones. Where do you think that us as multiracial or colored people fit in as far as being the teachers to allies and such as that? And how do you think, if we're not supposed to be the teachers, in your own experience, how have you done the work to become a better ally to those groups that you don't maybe identify with or that you do support as an ally?
Right. That was around the time Black Lives Matter became real big, but then there was that whole like all lives matter.
Yeah.
And having to have talks of like, although it is true that all lives matter, we cannot deny.
Yeah.
Okay. That we are seeing a huge marginalized group of people being treated unlike you. Right. I think it's the stop it. Stop the denial. Right. Stop the excuses, because you, for some reason, feel guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't the one who pulled the trigger, right? Yeah. You weren't there when that happened. What is wrong with having some compassion and some empathy for someone else who doesn't look like you? I think when you start asking the hard questions, it's the hard conversations that I think a lot of I would say maybe years prior, you could either ignore or not have. And having those hard conversations, just not backing down from them. It's not about debating. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, because I'm not here to prove that. What I am trying to say is that it's not always about what you look like and what you are. They're humans. Yeah. We are humans. You are a human. You bleed just like how he bled. You would have cried out for your mother like how he would have cried out for his, right? Yeah. Like, why can you not see him for who he is as a human being?
Yeah, yeah.
That was a hard time because my son at that time was walking to school, and there was, and I'm sorry, I don't have his name, but it was the small child who was playing with the toy guns, and it was reported in the cop came and shot him. Yeah. I mean, that was tough because my son was walking to school and he used to play the trumpet in band, and I remember being in fear that if he was just walking down, because he had to walk down a busy road with some friends. And what if someone said, you know, that small boy has a gun or whatever, and like that happened to my kid? I mean, I was living in a lot of angst at that time, and thankfully I was still in therapy, but it was then having to have that hard talk with my kid. Yeah. Right? That like, although you have, my son had a mixed race of friend, his friends group was very mixed race, but I had to like tell him that you're not always going to be seen like them. Like some of them, right? Yeah, yeah. And so therefore you have to be a little bit more careful. I hated that.
Yeah,
I hated that because that wasn't the world that he knew.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think just having the hard talks and just trying to make people realize that like we're all just human.
Yeah. Yeah.
With different hues of color of skin, and we come from different cultures and things like that. What is the difference other than that?
Yeah. And with that as the foundation of a conversation, I love that you said that we're all human, and do you think that it's important that we do talk about race? And do you think it's also important for, you know, non-BIPOC, non-colored people to be talking about race, or when I'm talking about in a constructive, positive way, when there are not, you know, BIPOC or colored people around to lead those conversations?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is my belief, and this is just my belief, that the only way we will ever come to an area of peace and understanding is if our allies start stepping in.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you and I can identify our people have been fighting for how long?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for many years. I mean, screaming, crying, marching, peacefully protesting. For how many years? And we've made a lot of stride, right? Yeah. Like, I can't deny what they've done. I'm thankful for them because I wouldn't be where I am today without them. But as a whole, I don't feel like we can ever get to that, like, complete acceptance if our allies don't step in and start educating their people. It just won't happen. So yes, I think in spaces that I'm not in, you're not in, or anyone else is in, yeah, they need to be there educating others. And they also need to be in the grunt work, like learning about us, not just reading about us, but learning about us and making more friends and asking more questions, right?
Yeah.
So 100%. Yeah.
And you answered a question on there about you know, even more recent than the George Floyd murder was you were talking a little bit about Kamala being mixed race and how that just was such a big issue. It seemed like
my thing was like, who cares that she just came out and told you her dad was Jamaican? I mean, in what setting, a political setting, was it right for her to say, I'm fighting for this, and oh, by the way, my dad's black?
Yeah.
Why was that? Why was it at the forefront of everybody's? She just started telling us now. Why now? Oh, now she wants to be black and things like that. That was such a dagger.
Yeah.
And so irritating. Yeah. Because it was just like, and what does it matter to you? I just feel like a lot of the times, especially in politics, right? I don't remember ever hearing like, well, is he Dutch or is he right? Yes, like there's never like, what origin are they from Europe or just whatever? Like there's never this like, oh, your ancestors are from here and now you want to say you're from America? Yeah. Like where's that uproar, right? But then a person of color comes in, and we can even say it happened to Obama too. Yeah. Like where's the birth certificate, right? Two people come in, and then it's this whole like, let's just focus on the identity. Let's just focus on this, and how people really jump on that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so in parting, what do you think are some bits of wisdom you can give to an individual who's multiracial mixed, who's possibly having issues around their identity. They're being told to choose by friends or by a parent, or or even wisdom that you give your children around being multiracial, and kind of living right now in this time.
I think predominantly the belief that I have is that you have nothing to prove to anyone. Mm-hmm. You just don't, right? Like, people can ask questions all day long, and people can treat you in any type of way, but you have nothing to prove to anyone but yourself. And so if you have someone forcing you or trying to force you to choose one, or, pick a side and things like that, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You are yourself. You are who you are, and stand firm in that, right? And it doesn't always have to be in words. You don't have to argue with people in order to stand firm in who you are. You can, you can hold a boundary and just dismiss the conversation, because we don't have to have those conversations with ignorant people, quite honestly.
Yeah, true.
And you know what? And sometimes people are a little confused because they don't know that other side that they want to claim. Let's say someone is, I don't know, like, Filipino and Black or something, but they were only raised with their Black side and didn't know their Filipino side. It's okay to do your studies, to do your homework, to learn about it, right? You don't have to be raised by that side to know who you are.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel standing firm and just being confident in who you are two key things that I feel like I try to instill in my children.
And this might be a little bit more hypothetical. Thank you for that beautiful answer you just gave. Is if you did not, let's just say hypothetically, you did not really grow up with the Mexican side of your family. Do you feel like it is important, and do you think that you would have researched and learned more about that other side of your family? A total hypothetical question. It's hard to say, right.
It's hard to say right now, the person that I am right now, if I was still that person, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily if I would have sought out family, but maybe I would have went to Mexico or something, and tried to understand the culture and the dynamics of that. I did do not 23andMe, but the Ancestry, right? Yeah. Ancestry.com. And because I did want to know more. I mean, my mother's Mexican, my dad's Black, but there's so many cultures, right, that are mixed into it. So finding that out is like, okay, well, yeah, I'm African American, but what part of Africa?
Yeah.
And only to find out that there was Congo, Sinhalese, Nigerian, right?
Yeah.
And then on my Mexican side, there was Indigenous Mexico, there was Spaniard, there were all these things, and they weren't all from one place. Even with that, even being raised and being very confident in who I am, as my parents raised me to be, I do feel that, seeing that, I want to go visit those places. Yeah, I want to see what the Nigerian, what my Nigerian side was, or, what people in the Indigenous Mexico area that I'm from, I want to see that for myself. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you sound like a very curious person, which is a good way to live.
Absolutely, you have to be, right?
Yeah, it's funny, because I feel like we have to be as multiracial people. There's always something new you learn. So let's wrap it up here. I've really enjoyed talking to you. What's your recipe for world peace?
Ooh. Going back to what I said prior, accepting one another.
Yeah.
Accepting one another. Accepting everyone for who they are, not necessarily for what they are. And being able to be in the trenches together, Just, again, like I said, my belief is that we really can't come to terms of accepting everyone for who they are if we don't have our allies, but also get to know each other and get to know our cultures. It's a beautiful thing. You have to stop being so close-minded.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Korina, do you have a social media that you want to share, or it's up to you?
I don't. I'm so mad
it's all
because
right.
I'm just moving into those types of things. But yes, I will have something to share later.
Awesome,
but no,
awesome.
I do not.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate this so much. It's so fun.
I love learning about you and laughing. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Huge shout out to my friend Johannes Skoda for mixing and creating the intro music, and DJ Kazam for the track.